Hello, 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 and welcome back to another Etiquette Raiders stream. Well, chat, today we've got something just a little bit different. We have some reading to do. So, let me see, I just want to double check. Let's get my chat fired up here. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. What the fuck am I doing? Alrighty, chat. So, let me see here. So, longtime viewer of the stream, L. Cayman, has released his fan fiction that he's been working on diligently, and this will be a blind reading. Let me see. Okay, let me do my due diligence here. Post my clip. Also, if I get a little I don't know. I was stung shortly before stream by some mystery insect. So if I drop dead from a allergic reaction, you know what happened. Alrighty, so and I figured too, seeing the bees buzz around, that'll keep the short attention spans happy. Let me see. Okay. Let me speak to the people, Piccolo. No one's stopping you. Alright, let me see. Let me do my due diligence. Cross post where I need to be posting. I'm thinking very slow, chat. This might be harder than I assumed, but we will power through. Gotta do my social media. Should have done this before I started streaming, but that's fine. Stream has always been jank, always will be jank. Let's see, promotional for channels. There we go. Paste and go. Yes, sir. Alright, got that. Should be good enough. Fuck it. Alright. Let us find the document in question. Now, this is a completely blind reading. So, there are some caveats. If I see anything that could be problematic from a TOS standpoint, I'll either omit it or, well, we'll just be there. But I'm not going to sacrifice my stream. So, we will adjust accordingly. Let us see. Alright, so, from one L. Cayman. Let's see. So, this is written by L. Cayman and apparently Pancho Hamster as well. Ladies and gentlemen, at Pancho Hamster and I, L. Cayman, present to you Admin of Steel, a fully fledged 2B2T fan fiction. Before any literature nerds rip me to shreds, this is the first time I've read on it. First time I write in another language, so please forgive any minor grammatical or spelling mistakes. I also legitimately looking for feedback on my writing style. So let me open this Google Docs. Alrighty, let's see what we got. Now, from what I understand, this is going to be a very, very long document. Last I heard, it was at minimum 40 pages. I don't know though. We'll see how it goes. Okay, chat. I have some water with me. I have insect venom in my system. This is perfectly ideal situation for narration. Alright, prologue. A once beautiful server. On a server called 2 Fort 2 Furious, 2F2F, George Bush 420 helps out his wife Laura Bush 777 to give birth to their child at a medical facility on the server. Laura Bush 777 is struggling a lot to do so. The computer panel shows to George Bush 420 the baby inside Laura's uterus. Boy, this is a journey already. Alright. Laura holds George's hand. He looks at her for a few moments, and then Laura Bush 777, with all of her strength and a lot of struggling, manages to give birth to a child, a male child. George Bush 420 holds the baby in his arms and looks at it. Then the baby screams. Far away from there, a sniffer that was grazing on a plains biome roars at the sky, scaring a few members of his herd and the parrots that were on his back. The parrots fly towards the sunset. Not far from here. Give me a moment, chat. Goodbye account made 1 hour ago. Okay. Snap back to reality. Okay, back to that. There we go. Alright, where was I? Not far from there, in the capital city of 2 Forts, 2 Furious, George Bush 420 was having a meeting with 2F2F admin team on their main gathering on their main gathering building. The 6 admins were each sitting on a throne made of gold and raw gold blocks. They were also wearing gold armor. George Bush 420 says to them, "Do you not understand? The server's core is collapsing. We may only have a few weeks left. I warned you. Breaking the bedrock layer and tapping into void energy was a suicide. It has accelerated the process of implosion." One of the admins responds to him. "The redstone energy reserves were exhausted. What would you wanted us to do, George?" To which George Bush 420 responds to, "Look to the stars, like our ancestors did. There are habitable servers within reach. We can begin by using the old outposts." One of the admins asked George Bush 420, What are you suggesting that we evacuate the entire server?" George Bush 420 responds to her, "No, everyone on this server is already dead. Give me access to the backdoor book. I'll ensure the survival of our player base. There's still hope. I've carried that hope on my hands." Suddenly, someone blows up the obsidian door of the room. Everyone looks at it. But then, the guards of the room are killed by other players using laser guns from behind the smoke. These players emerge from the smoke. It was General Jared 2013 and his allies, among them Halt Account and Jake the Snake 52. All of them were wearing bedrock armor. Oh shit. He's whipping out the bedrock armor. Jared 2013 says, "This council will disappear." One of the admins asks him, "Under which authority?" Jared simply responds to her, "Mine." Immediately afterwards, he shoots her with his laser gun, killing the admin. Then Jared 2013 says, "Everyone else will be judged and punished accordingly." George Bush 420 walks up to Jared 2013 and asks him, confused and angry, "What are you doing, Jared? This is madness." Jared 2013 responds, "What I should have done years ago. These admins with their eternal debates. had led to this server's ruin. Holt account drags one of the admins out of his throne, causing him to stumble to the ground and his gold helmet to fall off. The other allies of Jared take the rest of the admins as prisoners. George Bush 420 says to Jared 2013, "If your forces prevail, you will be the leader of nothing." Jared 2013 then put his left hand on George's left shoulder and says to him, "Then join me, help me save our player base. We will start over and cut the degenerative bloodlines that have led us to this state." George Bush 420 responds, "And who decides which bloodlines live and which don't? You?" Jared 2013 says, "Don't do this, George. The last thing I want is us being enemies." George then exclaims, "You abandoned the principles that kept us united. You took up arms against your own people. I will honor the player you once were, Jared, not the monster you have become." Jared 2013 feels betrayed, but also sad, due to seeing his childhood friend being against him, but he doesn't let it affect his mission. Jared 2013 says to his soldiers, "Take him away." George Bush 420 is being taken out of the building by 3 of Jared's soldiers. George's personal floating assistant, or PFA, gets in their way and asks George Bush 420, "Sir, is everything all right?" One of the soldiers exclaims to it, "Get out of the way." Meanwhile, George Bush 420 nods his head, closes his eyes. The soldier exclaims again, "I said," but it is interrupted when the PFA flashbangs them with a bright light, a moment George takes advantage of to attack the soldiers. He punches one in the head, knocking him out, then punches another in the back on his back. The other soldier tries to shoot George, but he diverts his weapon with his hand. Then he holds his weapon and shoots one of the soldiers, killing him. Then George manages to steal the soldier's weapon and also kills him. After finishing with the soldiers, George tells to his PFA, "Call Laura." The PFA does so, and on its screen a projection of Laura Bush 777's face appears. She says to George, "Behind you." The soldier that George knocked out before was waking up. "Hey, El Cayman." So he shoots him to finally get rid of him. After that, George Bush 420 tells Laura Bush 777, "Take our son to the bedrock sphere and prepare a launch pod. I will be with you as soon as I can." Yep, starting from the beginning here. George Bush 420 and his PFA go on to one of the landing platforms of the gathering buildings. And soon afterwards, they see the massive battle taking place in the capital city between 2F Army and Jared 2013's allies. Thousands of bedrock ships of different sizes battling each other. One of them even flies past the landing platform. George Bush 420 then screams at the sky, "Gene!" A few moments later, a roar can be heard in the distance. George's pet elder dragon, Gene, comes sliding down from the skies and lands on the platform. George gets on the dragon alongside his PFA, and then he flies down off the Gatherings building. Gene flies through the battlefield, graciously dodging the laser blasts as well as explosions from the battle. George's destination was the main Genesis Chamber Tower, located relatively near the main Gatherings building on the air. Jean positions herself over one of the entry ponds of the tower. As he prepares to jump in, George asks his PFA, "Can you see the backdoor book?" PFA responds, "It's just beneath the central hub, sir. But I'm compelled to warn you, breaching into the Genesis chambers is a Class 5 crime, punishable with..." George interrupts it by saying, "Nobody gives a damn anymore, Jimmy. This server is about to come to its end." George jumps off of Jean's back and dives straight into the water. George swims through the oxidized copper pipe filled with water until he comes out of it and reaches the main Genesis chamber. A completely submerged in water space, here is where 2F's babies are created and developed before being delivered to their parents. They were on transparent cocoons that were attached to massive kelp-like plants that started from the bottom of the tower all the way to the top. When a baby matured, a robotic squid grabs the cocoon he's in and takes it into another section of the tower. George swims towards the top of the chamber, reaching an air pocket and being able to breathe again. He then sees the backdoor book suspended in midair. 3 root-like plants were taking genetic information off of it. George extends his hand towards the backdoor book and grabs it. He admires it for a few moments, watching its enchantment glint until suddenly an alarm goes off. George quickly swims back the way he came from. Reaching the pond, he entered into the tower, but when he comes out of the water, Jean and his PFA were nowhere in sight. Behind him, a bedrock ship points at him a laser cannon. Its pilot says through the speakers of the ship, "George Bush 420, by the authority of the General Jared 2013, surrender the backdoor book." George knows that he can't do that, so he jumps off the tower before the ship shoots him. He free falls for a few moments, until suddenly, Jean catches him midair, saving his life. George Bush 420 reincorporates and directs Jean to the bedrock sphere. George's PFA warns him, "Sir, there are 2 combat ships chasing us." Jean manages to dodge the blasts from the bedrock ships, but then George Bush 420 notices something. 2 massive bedrock ships had collided with each other in their path, with no other way around the explosions. They would have to go through it. The bedrock combat ships that were crashing them are destroyed in the explosion, but just as they were leaving, one of the explosion debris hits Jean on the neck, causing her an injury that starts bleeding out. Jean roars in pain, but George calmly says to her, "It's okay, Jean. It's okay." Jean continues flying towards the bedrock sphere with her last strength, until she can't keep up anymore, and Jean the Elder Dragon falls dead on the landing platform. But her mission was completed, and George Bush 420 enters the bedrock sphere. Sorry if the redaction is a bit city, first time writing in English. This is a lot more legible than a lot of other fanfic that I've read, so you're doing a great job, El Cayman. Don't worry about it. Let's see. Inside the sphere, George Bush 420 places the backdoor book on an extraction chamber above a cradle-type seat. Laura Bush 777, holding the baby in her arms, watches now how George prepares the bedrock pod for launch and configures a little the extraction chamber. George asks Laura, Did you found a server?" Laura responds, Yes, we have." George's PFA says, "A server orbiting a yellow sun, just like you asked for." George and Laura see the PFA screen, which shows them the server it had found, as well as the type of inhabitants it has. George Bush 420 says, "Seems like an intelligent player base inhabits it." I don't know about that. But Laura Bush 777 says in a worried tone, "He will be an outcast, a freak. They will kill him." But George Bush 420 responds, "No, he will be a god to them." Laura Bush 777 walks away while she says, "What if the pod doesn't make it? He'll die out there, alone. I can't do it. I thought I could, but now that he's here." George Bush 420, as he walks up to her, says, "Laura, Too Furious is doomed. This is our only chance, the hope of our player base." The PFA makes an alert sound. George Bush 420 asks, "What is it, Jimmy?" The PFA responds, There's 5 combat ships headed to our location. The sphere's defenses are being scanned and analyzed. George Bush 420 says, I'll upload the backdoor book. But Laura Bush 777 interrupts him. Wait, just let me look at him, referring to their baby. Laura says with sadness, we'll never get to see him. We never get to see him walk. We'll never get to hear him say our names. George responds in a beautiful tone, hopeful tone. But out there among the stars, he will live. Laura gives their baby to George, and both of them kiss the baby on the forehead. George then puts the baby on the seat and begins preparing an extraction chamber. After executing a few commands on the control panel, the backdoor book is just disintegrated, reduced to atoms. Then afterwards, the extraction chamber transfers the atoms of the book into the cells of the baby, effectively mixing them together. Although this doesn't have any consequences to the baby's appearance and well-being. George uses one of the redstone machines in the room to create... lost my space, give me a sec. In the room to create an enchanted lever that contained a digital copy of himself and all of his memories and knowledge. Then he inserts it in a slot that was behind the seat. Both George Bush 420 and Laura Bush 777 look at their baby one last time. George says to him, Goodbye, my son. All our hopes and dreams go with you. Meanwhile, Laura sheds a couple of tears. George presses a stone button on the control panel, and then the seat begins to ascend into the bedrock pod, entering it successfully, and then the pod doors close. Oh yeah, the PFA's voice is Mr. Beast in reference to him joining. Oh, okay. That's why George calls him Jimmy. Okay, so yeah, I didn't put that together, so thank you for the context. As Jared 2013's Bedrock ships approach from the horizon, George Bush 420 equips himself with a 32K diamond armor set. The Bedrock ships arrive at the Bedrock sphere. Jared 2013 tells his soldiers from the ship he was on, concentrate the attack on the main door. The Bedrock ships start blasting the door of the sphere until completely destroying it. Meanwhile, Laura was preparing the Bedrock pod for the launch. The Bedrock sphere opens up a little in order to leave space for the pod to take off. Once the pod is in launching position, the PFA says to her, Lady Laura, the Void engines are coming online. She then responds, Proceed to ignition. Meanwhile, outside, 2 of Jared's soldiers are inspecting Jean's corpse. Jared 2013 was getting off the ship he was on, until Halt Account suddenly approaches him and says, General, our scanners detect an engine ignition inside the sphere. Jared 2013 responds, A launch. Must be George with the backdoor book. Hold this platform, Commander. Jared and 2 other soldiers enter the Bedrock sphere, and they go into the room where the pod was. But George gets on their path. He was holding a laser gun he stole a while ago. Jared says to George, I know you stole the backdoor book, George. Surrender it, and I'll let you live. George responds, This is a chance for all of our player base, not just the bloodlines you deem worthy. Jared, shocked, asks, What have you done? George responds, We had a child, Jared, a male child. Fort Two Furious's first natural birth in centuries. He will be free to forge his own destiny. Jared 2013 says with anger, Heresy! Destroy that pod! The 2 soldiers point their laser guns at the pod, but George takes them out with a couple of shots. Jared holds George's gun and punches him in the face. He tries to get his gun away, but George resists. He managed to free his gun from Jared 2013, which tries to tackle him, but George Bush 420, using the sharp tip of the gun, makes Jared a cut on his chin, very close to his mouth. Jared screams in pain, but suddenly charges back at George. He tries to block Jared 2013 with his gun. but he pushes him to a wall and causes George Bush to accidentally shoot another wall. As George and Jared continue fighting, Laura starts making the final configurations in order to launch the pod. Jared manages to take away George's gun and punches him several times, but George strikes back. He grabs Jared by his left arm and slams his face on the wall. Jared reincorporates himself. You gotta reincorporate your business. Sometimes you gotta change names. Let's see. Tries to punch George Bush 420, but he blocks all of his attacks and even manages to punch Jared 2013 in the face several times. Didn't know another word for that. All good. Reincorporates. I was just fucking around. Don't worry about it. Probably recuperates. You're probably aiming for recuperate. Or, what was the other thing? There's another synonym. English is hard. Don't worry about it, dude. But he blocks all of his attacks, and he even manages to punch Jared in the face several times. After a few punches, George hits Jared on the stomach, followed by an uppercut which disorients Jared. George tries once again to slam Jared against the wall, but he fights back, so George punches him in the face a couple of times. Jared tries to free himself, but suddenly George hits Jared's belly with his knee. Afterwards, he slams Jared against the wall. George then grabs Jared by his left arm and throws him to the ground. George then grabs his laser gun back from the ground. Meanwhile, Jared 2013, seeing he couldn't beat George in a fight, notices that Laura was about to press a black stone button to launch the pod. Jared, as a last resort, says to her, "Laura, listen to me. The backdoor book is the future of Too Fort, Too Furious. Abort the launch." George looks at Laura, and she looks at him back. Laura then presses the button, initiating the pod's launch. Both Laura and George look above as the pod begins to take off. Meanwhile, Jared kneels on the ground as he screams their theory, "No!" He then takes out a 32 gauge diamond sword and stabs George straight in the heart. George looks at Jared in shock. Jared takes out the sword from his body. George falls dead on the ground. Laura quickly runs to George's dead body and hugs it, as well as crying on it. Jared asks to Laura, "Your son, Laura, where have you sent him?" Laura responds to him, "His name is Housemaster." His aim is Housemaster, son of Bush. He's out of your reach. Jared 2013 then simply goes outside the sphere, where Alta Count and his allies were waiting for him. Jared then orders one of his ships, "Bring that pod down." One of the Bedrock ships flies towards the Bedrock pod and aims at it. The pilot inside of the ship says, "Target locked." But suddenly the ship is hit by a laser blast, making it explode instantly. At the same time, the pod leaves the server at max speed. Out of the smoke from the explosion, a bigger Bedrock ship from 2F2F's army emerges. It aims at Jared 2013 and his allies with a laser cannon. The pilot says through the ship's speaker, "Put your hands up. Your forces are surrounded." Everyone does that except for Jared. He simply stares at the sky as more Bedrock ships arrive. A few hours later, in the court of 2F2 Furious, which is a tower on the capital city, a massive Bedrock ship descends towards the tower's roof. The ship was composed of a massive Bedrock sphere and 3 crab-like legs. Inside the courtroom that was at the top of the tower, one of the 2F2F admins says, "General Jared, for the crimes of murder and high treason, the admin team has sentenced you and your allies to 300 cycles of reconditioning in the Q void." Any last words? Jared rushes towards the admin with 2 guards hold him back. Jared then responds angrily, "You won't kill us yourselves. You won't get your hands dirty. But you condemn us to a black hole for eternity." Jared then spits at the admin. Laura, who is also there, watches as the guard try to move him back to his position. Jared yells, "George was right. You are all a bunch of dumbasses. All of you." Just as the guards were putting Jared back to his position, he runs towards Laura while saying, "And you." The guards manage to hold Jared back before reaching Laura. Jared says to her, "Do you think your son is safe? I will find him. I will reclaim what you have taken from us." The soldiers push Jared back to his position, but as he's being pushed, Jared says, "I will him. I will find him, Laura." The guards manage to put Jared 2313 back into his position. Jared yells at Laura, "I will find him." The platforms Jared and his allies are standing on begin to wrap them in blue ice capsules, one by one, a process which is very painful. After all of them are encased in ice, one of the 242 Furious admins lifts his hand up. Moments after that, the blue ice capsules are with all of Jared's allies, fly upwards towards a massive bedrock ship, which was going to be their eternal prison, which all of them were inside, and the ship's gateway was closed. All of the void engines on each of the ship's legs begin ignition. Meanwhile, outside of the ship tower, smaller bedrock ships fly around the tower, guarding the place as the massive bedrock ship begins to take off. Laura Bush 777 sheds a tear, and the bedrock ship begins flying towards the sky, eventually leaving the server's atmosphere. There, a portal made out of reinforced deep slate opens up a portal to the Q void. The bedrock ship passes through the portal, and then the portal closes once the ship finishes going through it. A day later, Laura Bush 777 was at her home, staring in sadness at the armor stand that held George's 32K diamond armor set. She then feels a rumble, so she decides to look at her window. She sees how massive pillars of lava begin erupting from the ground, destroying anything near them. As she gets closer to the window, her PFA asks to her, "Lady Laura, shouldn't you find refuge?" Laura responds, "There is no refuge. George was right. This is the end." Laura sees how the lava eruptions completely destroy the capital city in a matter of seconds. Laura looks at the sky for a few seconds, and she says, "Make a better server than ours, house." Shortly afterwards, Laura Bush 777 is engulfed in flames. 242 Furious begins to compress itself, and after a few moments, it explodes, generating a massive expansive wave that destroys its moon. The server's nether and end dimension are also destroyed. What once used to be a beautiful server, now it's nothing but millions of blocks floating in space. While 242 Furious may be gone, its legacy lives on, far away from the fallen server. A bedrock pod flies through space at max speed. The pod flies past Saturn, then past Mars, then past the moon. The pod's destiny was clear. A server called Two Builders, Two Tools. The pod begins to increase speed as it gets near 2B2T's atmosphere. As the pod descends from the skies, its landing point was clear. A farm 800,000 blocks away from spawn. After a long trip, the bedrock pod crashes into a field of wheat. Gonna take a moment to refresh my vocal cords with some water. Honestly, pretty good read so far. I mean, there's some grammatical shit, but this is a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I was bracing for impact. Yeah, no, it's pretty solid. Yeah, no. By far not the worst reading I've ever done. No, I've read a lot worse than this, so this is solid. Act 1. A Symbol of Hope. A boat cruises the seas of a deep, cold ocean biome. The rain and violent waves made the journey difficult, but the players on the boat were determined on their mission on fishing out valuable loot. Among the members of the fishing crew, there was Housemaster. Now being 31 years old, has black hair and red eyes. He is also wearing a red shirt, yellow pants, and gray shoes. House, as all the other members of the crew, was fishing for treasure. He was suddenly called by one of the other players. He asks House to help him out in setting up a fish trap. House does that, and then one of the leads unties from the fish trap. So House goes to grab it and put it back in place, without him noticing that one of the other fish traps was about to fall on him. But J_Boy 19 notices, and he quickly rushes towards Housemaster and pushes him out where the fish trap was about to fall, saving his life. J_Boy gets up and says to House, "Watch out, new guy. Get your eyes open or you're gonna get squashed." Clever save there. Watch out, new guy. Yes. Jay then extends his hand to House and helps him get back up. House says to Jay, "Thanks." Meanwhile, at the boat's control room, Grim 3169 and Dark Takanova, hey, I know that person. That's budget techno. The captain of the crew were having a conversation. Grim asks, "Where did found that new guy?" Dark Takanova responds, "We needed volunteers and he offered himself. Who am I to say no?" Dark then receives a message on the boat's console. House was doing his work at the deck of the boat until him and everyone else there hear a message from Dark through the speakers on the ship. "Gentlemen, secure the deck. We just got a distress signal from a group of players on an ocean base near our position." As the boat goes towards the base, a flying machine flies over them. The pilot of the machine communicates with Dark, "Get your boat and crew out of there. That base has been severely grieved and there's still lava flowing from the lava cast." House enters the boat's control room and hears Dark asking the pilot, "What about the players inside of the base?" The pilot responds, "Forget about them. They're done for." House sees the grief base in the distance, and he goes out of the control room of the boat. Dark tells to Grim, "Hey Grim, tell the new guy to bring me my spyglass. It's in one of the chests in the back of the boat." Grim responds, "Yes, Captain." Goes out for a moment, and then quickly comes back to the control room and says, "Captain?" Dark asks, "What?" Grim responds, "He's not here." Dark says, surprised, "What?" Meanwhile, on the base, 4 players are still trapped inside. We're trying to get out of the room that they were in without any success. But then they hear something outside. Like if someone was breaking all of the cobblestone outside. Suddenly the iron door of the room is broken open. House then enters the room, to the players' surprise and confusion. House was engulfed in flames, but he wasn't taking any damage at all, and didn't seem to have any fire resistance on him. House says to the players, "Come on, let's get out of here." Meanwhile, outside of the base, the flying machine from before, which was piloted by one of the members of the group that the base belonged to, receives a message. "Dude, someone rescued us. No idea how, but he's taking out of the base. Go to the landing pad. We'll meet you there." The pilot responds, "Gotcha. Heading there right now." The pilot moves the flying machine towards the base again, which was being consumed by the lava cast on top of it. House leads the group to the landing platform of the base. The flying machine arrives, and one by one, the players get on it. House was also gonna get on the flying machine, but he notices that a chunk of the lava cache was about to fall on top of the landing platform. The pilot yells at House, "What are you doing? We gotta get out of here." House ignores him. He then rushes towards the chunk of cobblestone that was about to fall and manages to hold it in place. Despite the amount of cobblestone being massive, he was able to hold it with his bare hands. The pilot is shocked because of that. But then one of the players asks to him, "He's giving us time to escape. Let's get out of here." The pilot quickly refocuses and gets the flying machine out of the base. House keeps holding the chunk of cobblestone, but the landing platform just wasn't able to hold it anymore. The chunk of lava cast falls over House, destroying a big part of the base with it. Dark Takanova, Grim 3169, J_boy 19, and the other members of the boat, who were seeing everything in the distance, see the flying machine heading out of the base as it collapsed. House had fallen into the ocean, unconscious. Then House starts having a dream. House, when he was 8 years old, was attending a school like many other children. That day he was in history class. The teacher says, "Okay, class, can any of you tell me when Chizhead, leader of the Face Punch Republic, got his mighty diamond axe?" She then asks House owner, "Can you tell me when Cheesehead got his battle axe?" But House owner wasn't responding to the question. He was looking in various directions. His classmates looked at him, weird, out of the way he was acting. The teacher asked to the house owner, "Hey, is everything alright, House?" From house owner's viewpoint, he was able to hear everything insanely loud, and he was also able to see through everything, like the skeleton and the muscles inside everyone in the classroom, and even the mobs that were in the cave deep below the school. All of that combined was causing him a headache. Then house owner, scared, gets off his chair and runs towards the door of the classroom. After leaving the classroom, he covers his ears in an attempt to stop the loud noises he was hearing, with no success. House owner then runs to a janitor's closet of the school and locks himself inside. A few moments later, the teacher and the other students from the classroom are outside of the door. The teacher knocks on the door and says to house owner, "House, come out of there, please." House owner responds, "Please leave me alone." And then the teacher says, "House, please come out and tell me what's going on so I can help you, please." She then keeps knocking on the door, hurting housemaster's ears even more. The teacher says, "House, I have called your mother, so please get out of there." The teacher tries to move the door handle, but suddenly she gets her hand burned a little. The door handle was incredibly hot. House owner's mom, Hannah, finally arrives at the scene. She asks to the teacher, "Where is he?" The teacher points to the door, so Hannah stands in front of it. Hannah says, "House, honey, please open the door." House owner hears one of the girls outside asking, "What's happening to him?" The girl responds to him, "I don't know. He never did anything like this before." Another kid says, "He's such a weirdo." But the girl says to him, "Hey, don't say that. He's not a weirdo." Hannah speaks again to house owner. "House, please tell me what's happening." House owner then responds, "This server is too big, Mom." Hannah responds, "Then just make it smaller." And she then continues speaking. "Just focus on my voice." House owner closes his eyes. Hannah says, "Pretend it's an island out in the ocean. Can you see it?" House owner responds, "I see it." Hannah says, Then swim towards it, honey." House owner gets up and slowly walks towards the door. He then opens it, and he sees Hannah on the other side. House owner hugs her mom, and she hugs him back. House owner then asks, "Why does this happen to me, Mom?" Hannah responds, "Oh, House." A voice of a woman house owner does not recognize calls him. House owner wakes up from his dream. He's still sinking into the ocean. House notices that he's surrounded by a lot of salmon and codfish, which quickly swim away once they notice House was moving. House looks upward and sees a group of squids swimming above him, as well as a pair of dolphins jumping in and out of the water. Far away from the Grief ocean base, House gets out of the water. He's now in a stony shore that leads to a taiga village. House looks for a place to stay during the night, but none of the villagers let him inside their homes. Just as he thought he would have a sleep outside, he sees a late-night restaurant run by players. He goes there and applies for a job as a chef. While he was making a pumpkin pie, House notices that 2 Imperium members entered the restaurant and sat on a table. After a waitress took their order, House hears the conversation that they were having while he was finishing up the pumpkin pie. One of them asks, "So, how the trip was?" The other responds, "It was fine. The nether highways weren't as bad as I thought they would be. But now let me ask you, what are we going to do this far out anyway?" He responds, "A few weeks ago, one of our base hunters found something weird, 2K blocks away from here on the east direction. Something buried deep below an ice spikes biome. I don't know exactly what it is, but I've heard others describe it as something never seen before in this server. Like, it feels like it came from another one." After a few hours, House clocks out at 4 a.m. since the restaurant was closing. House was leaving the restaurant when suddenly the manager walks up to him and tells him, "Thanks for taking the job. Do you think you can come back tomorrow?" House simply responds, "Maybe." The manager says, "Very funny. Alright, see you later." House responds, "See ya," and then starts walking through the taiga towards the east, in search for the place the Imperium members mentioned. A few hours later, a flying machine was landing on a snowy tundra. When it lands, Callie gets off it. She's quickly received by a group of Imperium members. One of them says to her, "Hello, Miss Callie. Name's Jang." Jaang. Callie responds, "Oh, you're Jang, the one behind the Valley of We project?" Jang responds, Yeah, that's me." Callie says, "It's an honor to meet you. That whole project helped a lot of new players escape from spawn." Jang responds, "Thank you. I'm proud of that achievement. But anyways, how are you doing?" Yep. Callie's gape. Yep. Let's see, where was I? Callie responds, "Doing good overall. How far are we from that station?" Jang responds, "Our camp is just behind that mountain. I'll take you there. One of our members will take your stuff there." Then Jang yells at another player, "Hey, new guy, take your stuff to the camp." What both of them didn't know is that the new guy was House, who was just hired 1 hour ago. House goes up to the flying machine and begins doing his task. While he was doing it, Callie says to him, "Be careful with the camera. It's quite heavy." Then both Callie and Jang walk away from the flying machine. While they're walking, Jang says to Callie, "I gotta confess, Callie, I'm not a huge fan of the 2B2T times, but the articles you wrote are just fantastic." Callie responds, "Thanks. It's nice to know that 2B2T legend likes the stuff I write." A few moments later, Callie is able to see the camp in the distance, where a lot of Imperium members there are a lot of Imperium members there. A few houses and also a main building where all the investigation was going on. After arriving to the main investigation building, Jang presents to Callie another player. This is our head scientist, Copperator. He says to Copperator, hello. Copperator responds, hello, Miss Callie. It's a pleasure to meet you. Callie responds, thank you, thank you. Zhang then says to Callie, you arrived a little earlier than we thought. We expected you to arrive tomorrow. Callie responds, which is the reason why I showed up today. Let's get one thing straight. The only reason I'm here is it's because I was near a highway that took me near here. 1 million blocks, it's not a distance you travel for nothing. So the thing you guys found must be worth my visit. Copperator says, oh, trust me, it's more than worth it. Follow me, I'll show you. Copperator takes both Callie and Zhang to a computer. Then Copperator starts scanning the nearby area. Then he starts explaining, one of our base hunters found this anomaly first. Ice layers distort the sonar echoes a little, but you can clearly see something there. Callie responds, isn't that just a spawner dungeon? Zhang responds, I doubt it. That thing is 300 blocks long and 150 wide, definitely bigger than a simple dungeon. Copper adds, but there's the spooky part. But here's the spooky part. The ice surrounding the object, it's over 20,000 years old. It dates back to the Alpha era, an era in which most historic records of it have been lost. Callie is deeply surprised by that fact. Later that day, Callie is outside of the camp, taking a few pictures of it. Then suddenly Zhang walks up to her and says, You wouldn't want to wander around here for too long. A lot of strays spawn here at night. Callie asks Zhang, well then, where am I going to sleep? Zhang responds, I'm glad you asked. Follow me, I'll show you. Zhang takes her to a small house made out of deep slate bricks and tiles. Zhang opens the iron door of the house by stepping on a stone pressure plate, which once inside he says, and here it is. Inside the house there's only a gray bed, a campfire, and all of Callie's stuff. Callie says, not exactly a 5-star hotel room. Zhang then says, oh yeah, there's also a bucket under the bed in case you need it. Then Zhang leaves the house. A few hours later, now being nighttime, Callie prepares her camera and goes outside of her house. She wanted to photograph something interesting, but then she realizes something. On one of the photos she took, there was something walking near the mountain. Callie gets weirded out by this, so she decides to follow the mysterious player to see where he was heading. Callie carefully climbs up the mountain, which was a frozen peaks biome. After making a 2-block jump, she finds a tunnel that went through the packed ice. The tunnel was clearly recently made, but Callie quickly notices that there was steam coming out of the tunnel and some of the ice had melted back into water. Callie gets a lantern out of her inventory and sees inside the tunnel, which was very deep. She can hear the sound of ice breaking in the distance, but also a very strange sound she had never heard before. Meanwhile, at the end of the tunnel, Housemaster is using heat lasers that he can shoot from his eyes, managed to reach an ice cave. House quickly notices something. A bedrock ship buried within the ice. He admires it for a moment, then he walks towards it. At the same time, Callie is walking down the ice tunnel. She was both amazed and confused as to how a player without tools could do something like that. House manages to find an open entrance to the ship, which was the cargo bay. After walking for a few seconds, House finds a locked door. Server restart. Where's my buzzing bees visual ASMR? It'll be back soon. Let's see. Callie was walking down the ice tunnel. House manages to find an open entrance to the ship, which was the cargo bay. After walking for a few seconds, House finds a locked door, which would lead him to the rest of the ship. Right next to the door, there was a panel, which only had a single slot in its center. House goes near it. Without him knowing, a PFA was right around behind him. A PFA is made out of bedrock. A PFA is made out of bedrock block, which works as the main head. The head was a screen which images can be projected on. The rest of the body is made out of two bedrock walls which contain a defense weapon inside. House takes out an enchanted lever out of his pocket. He looked at it for a few seconds and then realized it perfectly fit the slot of the panel. House tried to insert the enchanted lever in the slot, but when he was a little closer to it, the lever automatically placed itself into the slot. Although it didn't fully enter the slot, the ship's lights turn on. House owner then turns around and sees the PFA behind him, now with its main head open, revealing part of the mechanisms inside of it. The PFA was making a strange buzz-like noise, and then the PFA, from its bottom part, takes out a whip made of bedrock as well. The PFA hits House on his left shoulder, surprisingly causing him a bit of pain. House tries to push the enchanted lever further into the slot, but the PFA grabs his right arm with his whips and tries to drag him away from the panel. After a bit of struggle, House manages to free himself and quickly rushes towards the panel and pushes the enchanted lever into the slot moments before the PFA could re-attack him again. The ship completely turns back on again, and the PFA no longer identifies House owner as an intruder, so it flies away. When the door next to the panel opens up, it reveals that a mysterious player was behind it, which quickly walks away when House looks at him. House owner follows it, intrigued as to who he was. Meanwhile, at the ship's entrance, Callie sneaks inside it and starts taking pictures of the ship. House walks through the empty hallways of the ship, then he enters what appears to be the main control room. With a single seat in it, which was held by the ship's ceiling, he also sees the control room's main window, which was partially frozen. Then he looks at the control seat for a few seconds, but suddenly hears a voice whisper to him. He looks back at the ship's entrance and sees the mysterious player walking on the hallway outside the room. House tries to follow him once again, but when he walks inside of the room, the player was nowhere to be seen. Callie continues to explore the ship, but as she was walking by, the PFA shows up in front of her. So, I'm going to stop it for now. It appears like after like an hour of hardcore reading, my vocal cords are starting to fuck up a bit here. So I don't want to screw up my voice. But yeah, no, very solid thing so far, El Cayman. I definitely, why I'm stopping early, I also had like a bee sting, insect sting. So I definitely don't want to screw up my vocal cords. Plus I'm feeling a little tired. So, but yeah, we'll definitely keep streaming these until however long it takes. When's the next reading stream? I'm going to power through these until your document is done. This is going to be a little content series. Yeah. That way your stuff gets narrated, and yeah, you'll have it preserved, and you have a first draft. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm still cruising on Twitch Studios' old stuff, so I don't know how long that's gonna hold out. But yeah, we'll see what's workable. Also, too, if, just as a side note, if Twitch Studio does fuck up, it's very solid. I'm liking it. I'm gonna have to get a new streaming thing to upload material to Twitch. So if that happens, I'm not ignoring your thing. It's just, I had some tech issues behind the scenes that I'm fucking around with. So, with that in mind, you all have been watching the Etiquette Raider. I'm going to see if I can raid somebody. Last time, I'm not sure if the raid went through or not, but we'll see if it works. I'm not sure who is online right now. Let me see. Actually, let me check on... Yeah, good to see you, El Cayman. I'll see you next time. Let me see what we got here. Can't remember if I need to log in. Of fucking course I do. La da 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 da. Mute myself for a moment here, chat.
Hello? The song? Oh, I didn't even turn on the webcam.
I am still muted. Alright, let's see. Alrighty, chat. Let's see what we got here. I'm gonna try to raid somebody fun. Let's see what we got. So, as per usual, I'm watching the Etiquette Raider. Love you all. Dad advice. I don't know. Go out and read something. Doesn't matter if it's fan fiction, non-fiction. Just read more. Good for the mind, body, and soul. And with that, and as Etika would say, have yourselves a damn good one. Bye-bye. Alright, so /raid. Man, I am brain dead right now. Let me just double check something. I want to make sure I'm spelling it right. I think that's the syntax. Let's see if I fuck this up or not. Gonna see if we can try to raid Zen. I don't know if it will work or not, but here we are, chat. One viewer is ready to raid Zen in 9 seconds. Hell yeah, brother. Alright, 3, 2, 1, go raiding, boys. Come on, raid now, go, go, go. Right, love you all. Behave yourselves, don't be shitheads. See you next time, chat. Bye-bye.